Hello again, everybody. It's Paul here with another belated episode of Karate Cafe, just here in the dojo, my own business. Off to my left, perhaps your right, is my good friend Dan Williams. Dan, how are you?
Virtual high five.
Oh wait.
Boom. Good. I'm great. Here we go. Right now, other side.
Oh,
There we
sorry.
go. See, the people listening will be fascinated by this.
Yeah, I know.
Other
For
side.
for those of you who, I mean, you make me do it again.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
did it?
See, the other side, dude. You're on the wrong side.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
You mirrored.
See, I'm
See,
on the. We got to do it this way then.
is it
Just do
6 or
that way.
9?
Cover our
That's
bases.
right. We'll do either one. Uh,
We're just
for
gonna
those
do.
of
We
you,
should do some chisao, virtual
oh yeah.
chisao.
Here's my center line.
Right.
And we'll talk more about that kind of crap in a minute. But for those of you who are listening to it on the Martial Arts First podcast, Karate Cafe, we're doing a video version. We're doing a Zoom session because, hey, that's what everyone is doing. So we're doing a
Right.
Zoom
It's the
session.
thing. So why
It's
not
the
do the
thing.
thing?
It's the somehow Skype went away and Zoom blew up. Who knew? So we're
Can
doing
you?
the
Oh, so
audio.
I saw the greatest video the other day of the CEO, the fake CEO of Skype, going, "Where the hell did Zoom come from? Like, are you kidding me? All of this years ago, and now everybody is zooming, and Skype used to be a verb even,
I know
like,
it
and
was
now
like
everyone's
Google's.
on Zoom.
Yeah, I know, and even
Yeah,
in the early years, early days, months of people still were saying about Skyping you, and now everyone's zooming you, as opposed to
yeah. I'll
Xeroxing or
Skype you
Googling.
on Zoom, like.
Right, exactly. I'll log into your
So
Zoom session via Skype.
sorry,
But
I got
anyway,
all excited and interrupted.
I know because Dan and I just like looking at each other. Anyway, we're doing the
That's
the
right.
the audio version, which you're listening to now, and you're doing we're having the video version, which you're looking at now. Give you a pause
Mm-hmm.
for later. We're going to throw that up on YouTube, so you can see us with the Corona hair. I got serious Corona hair, but you can see my lovely dojo behind me. You can see Dan's training student back there, patiently waiting for
I'm
hfor him to
I'm
come back.
I'm currently outside.
Yep,
That's right.
dodging the rain drops or whatever's going on. But anyway, yeah. So for those of you who listen to our podcast, may have noticed that we have been quiet for pretty much the entire pandemic, and but quiet, but not
Yeah.
unengaged. Drinking a little coffee right there. For those of
Right.
you on the video version, can see that. Anyway, but we've been talking back and forth about getting back on the old proverbial horse stance, and now here we are. And so, but now we're going to double it up. And
As
actually, one
we
of the
as
things
we
I
always
was
do.
exactly we other podcasts give you this, we give you this. And so you have to watch the video version to find out exactly how much I'm giving you.
See,
Hey, that's marketing, son. We anyway.
like, subscribe, and share. Right.
Yeah, like and subscribe below. I always say that whenever I do something good
Thumbs
in
up.
the online class. Then even though, hey guys, it's the stereotypical greeting of every YouTube video. Hey guys, it's just
Hi
me.
guys.
Of course you subscribe to my channel. And why anyway, that anyway, but we were just going to talk about basically maybe an overview of what we've been doing for the year, what we've seen in the martial arts, kind of get our feet wet. One of the things that I was thinking, Dan, and I was going to tell you this earlier in the green room, but forgot, was maybe we could also do some of these. We tried it before doing a Facebook Live of these, and subscribe so that way maybe we can get some people, because we're all working from home during the
Yeah.
day. Well, not everyone, but many of us are. And even though there's light at the end of the tunnel, whether it's a train or the end of the tunnel, I think the whole remote work thing is probably going to be around for a while. Here's hoping for those of
I,
us.
I think so.
Yeah. So Dan, how has the last year been treating you?
It's been surreal, and that's probably the case for a lot of people. It's obviously this whole thing has affected martial arts and martial artists a lot. It's a it's a very physically engaging hobby, and a lot like the gyms and yoga studios and things like that. It's been very, very difficult for martial arts schools to keep their doors open, in all honesty. And the movement to online, I think that it's probably forced a lot of people to do something that they had maybe been considering doing anyway. Um, it has accelerated a lot of people's learning of how to, you know, I'm 50 something and need to figure out how to do Zoom, and you
Yeah,
know, mother's the necessity of necessity is the mother of getting shit done. So
word.
oops, swore. uh
Now I
and
got to change the rating.
I all right, I think that just a lot of people have been forced into it. I
Yeah,
do think it's
absolutely.
interesting the way the lessons have had to change, in that you don't get that physical engagement. You can't touch physically anymore. So where does your physical, what do you end up focusing on when you can't do those things? I think especially for like, you know, uh, the jujitsu guys, like they don't have forms that they can do at home to practice. They don't have, at least that I know of, they don't have techniques that they can, you know, go march up and down their whatever in and say, okay, I'm gonna practice this or practice that. I would imagine it's been especially difficult on those schools. So yeah, it's you know, for me personally, it's been pretty smooth. Like you know, I'm an IT guy, so for me, working from home really wasn't that big a transition. In fact, the team of people that I worked with, even when I was going into work, were from the UK, Egypt, and China. So I was practically working remotely from the office anyway. Um, and so really, it's just like I was at the dining room table for a long time, and then my wife and I finally, after a year, moved me back to get an official office space. And now I'm just crossing my fingers that going back to work is kind of going to be an optional thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
But yeah.
and we did like I think a couple of
Hmm.
early pandemic shows, and we were talking about training
Yep.
and visualization and stuff like that. And so now it's a year later. I was in the green room, we were talking, and I said that yeah, I got my first Facebook memory of a year ago of the first online class that we did, you know, and
Wow.
and then I got like one yesterday or day before. It was like the first class we did with weapons with Kabuto and stuff. And I'm sure that yeah, like you were mentioned, there was a whole lot of people that were trying to kind of ramp up technically, but because here in Karate Cafe we don't just talk about martial arts, we also talk about martial arts culture. I think it really
Right.
affected our culture and still is. Uh, uh, for a large point, um, personally and politically, and administratively, it hit us on a lot of levels. I mean, you say we're a physical endeavor, and that's true. But from if you run a class, or own a business or anything else that's tied into that, there were a lot of levels that were impacted. I mean, this and continued, right? Because I mean, I'm sure there are many people, most of us, who were thinking it was going to be like a 3 or a 6 month thing. Then it was a nine
Right.
month thing. Now it's a year, and it may still be another 3 or 4 months after that.
Yeah.
People recovering, and getting back, and for me, one of the things that we were talking about was, there were so many people that were just, I lost a couple of students. I mean, I didn't lose them. They went on hiatus. They were like, well, when you get back in the dojo, that a couple of them came to the online classes and said, just the online thing's just not working for me. When you move back in the dojo, I'll come back. And I was like, all right, fair enough. But I mean, I
And I
picked up a
get that.
student.
Yeah, I'm fairly compassionate to that, you know?
Yeah,
Like
no,
I get it that it is, especially like if you're new or something.
right. Well, but I mean, I picked up one new student almost immediately from the, and I really kind of thought I was going to get more a few months down the line because people were like antsy and looking for things to do. And this is something you could do, at the house. But from an instructor standpoint,
That's a good point.
you know, it became kind of a slog of, like it was constantly kind of trying to come up with ways to do stuff, and visualization, and like Tishatsu training, which is using the ancient Okinawan training tool of a t-shirt to like provide resistance when you're doing blocks, and various and sundry things, and then after you know about 6 months or so, I was kind of like, man, this is really getting hard to to try and keep the energy up.
Create a lesson plan without
you
physical
know
stuff. Yeah,
yeah, it's
and
like, okay,
energy. Just the
yeah,
energy level.
yeah, and one of the taglines for my dojo is, come for the violence but stay for the jokes. So I really got, I think, a good chunk of uh the tribe, because we had people come in from our federation, we had people come in and do classes from other systems, you know and one of the comments I got was that, like, people would say like, well, we really like your class because it's fun. And people are so like focused on the physical part to overcome depression, or whatever, and help build your endorphins. But it's like, I tell a lot of jokes, I take martial arts very seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously. So a lot of them are like, I really enjoyed it. It was so that kind of brought that
Well,
game
and
up.
yeah, and I think as we were talking about this, I think one of the things that is interesting about this whole thing as well is this has forced you to think about that stuff, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people that have schools where maybe they were very used to and comfortable with the routine that they had in their dojo. You come in, you do stretches. After stretches, you do floor exercises. After floor exercises, you do forms, and after forms, you do, grab bag. And that is the routine of the class. Period. And now you're getting people going, okay, I guess we probably have to change up our routine from this. We can't really spar anymore. That's not a thing. For Wing Chun, Chi Sao, not a thing anymore. And so it's it it may have had some benefits of some instructors being able to I guess think outside the box, break their routine, and to say, I have to now get maybe a little bit more creative and talk about the history of this martial art, or the philosophy, or the, hey, maybe, as you've pointed out, we bring in people from other martial arts and say, let's compare and contrast what you're doing and what they're doing. And
Yeah,
like a good example is you having a lighthearted nature in your class, right? Because when you're physically engaged in the class, maybe you're there mostly to get a workout. Maybe a lot of those students are like, I want to get a good workout. My instructor doesn't need to make me laugh. Like, that's not the point. I want a good workout. Well, now maybe both students and instructors have to understand that it's about a lot more than that. It's about community, it's about history, it's about, and we talk about all these things a lot. The peripheral effects of going to a martial arts class, having friends and community and just all of that stuff. And when you're kind of put into this situation, some of that stuff, it forces you to think about that, and also forces you to think about your priorities. And for better or for worse, there might be some people going, boy, I was spending a lot of time and energy on this, and maybe it's just not my thing anymore, or whatever
yeah,
the case might be. But yeah, I think any kind of trauma to a system, whether that be a person or a society, makes you take another look at your priorities and figure out what you want to do and where you want to be.
yeah. I've said it many times, over the last year, to mostly to like my senior fellow instructors and senior students and whatnot. Was, yeah, this is a really good time, especially in the early days. I was like, this is a really good time to like catch up on the history, and just like you're talking about, catch up on the
Absolutely.
the culture of your art, and whatnot. And I mean, Google stuff, watch videos, have people. We visited a couple of other classes, for us in our
Right.
federation. I told them, I was like, go to other instructors, if time zones allow, go to other instructors' classes and go see
Yeah.
how we're teaching the same stuff I'm teaching, but they're doing it a different way, or we have guest instructors come in and they
Well,
were
and
like,
do stuff like have the instructor's instructor come, or just not
yeah,
even teach technique. Just come and say, okay, this is how I got into it. This is how I got exposed to it. It was
mhm,
my dad, and I grew up in a martial arts family. And then when I outgrew my dad's instruction and I moved on to the, like, that history is interesting to know, and not just, this is the history of your martial art, but also
mhm.
this is the history of you. This is the history of your instructor. This is the history of their
Yeah.
instructor, kind of thing.
It's fun. It's funny enough you say that, because I did do that one night. I found, we were cleaning out the garage, and I found some old photos of like my black belt test, and just old group photos from camps, in the 90s and the
Very
80s and
cool.
whatnot. And so
Yeah.
I took them, and so I put them up just like I'm doing now with the background, right? And there was a picture of like our grandmaster, my instructor, his instructor, and me, right? Or well, I should, it was them, right? And then so I kind of like stood next to it with it in the background. So I was kind of like online. I'm like, this is your lineage right here. This is him. This is our grandmaster. This is his senior
Yep.
guy who was my sensei's instructor. This is my sensei. Your grand sensei. And then now here's me. This is where I am. And then there was like a group photo I put up of a bunch of people. I'm like, there's only like 3 people in this photo that are still training, and this photo was taken in whenever. So hang on.
And I think that stuff is great. I think there should be more of that stuff. I think that it's yeah, it's one of those things where, like I say, maybe there's a silver lining to some of this, or at least, you know there's some aspects to it that make our lives better instead of just worse. I don't know exactly how to like put it, but I think too that if you don't look for those things, then you're guaranteed to never find them. So I would
Right.
encourage everybody to explore, and don't just say, well, if we can't do this stuff physically in the same room, then we just can't do anything at all.
Right. Well, yeah,
That would be a bummer.
I had well, it wasn't much of a discussion actually. I just kind of, it was a Facebook reply to a guy I know who he has left his uh, classical karate background, and he's going out with our close personal friend Ian Abernathy's group of doing practical karate, and he's kind of gone all in, and doing a lot of really good work, and doing a lot of work, and one of the things he talked about, this happened pretty much kind of sort of right as pandemic hit, and there was a thread on Facebook and talking about promotion, and he was saying like, well, I can't really do promotions because part of the curriculum that I'm developing has throws and stuff in it, and I can't see him do throws, or there's no one really they can throw with, so I can't do any promotions. And I said like,
Yep.
I said I thought you were, I said I thought you were, I said like you shouldn't like let the curriculum bog you down or whatever. And he said, well, I'm writing the curriculum because this is my new thing. And I'm like, but weren't you trying to break away from sort of the strict dogmatic, like it's got to be this way or no way? I said, isn't that what you're breaking from? And now you're right back in it.
Yeah.
And because for me, like I promoted a couple of people, and and people were, because we do 2D, right? So we're just grappling as part of can't do that right now, just can't, so we can kind of simulate it. But one of the things that I'm doing is like, is for me, it's always been about concepts. Do people understand the concepts? Can they sort of demonstrate it conceptually and explain it to me until we can actually touch hands and whatnot?
Right.
But so I mean, I think that's something that's going to kind of shake up, the model of way people teach. And I said, as an instructor, I took this. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this the other day, who tried my class out for the first time, and he had very complimentary things to say about it. And I said, well, when this happened, I took it as not only as an instructor, but as just as a martial artist of like, well, here's my blocker. How do I get around that blocker? Or how do I go under it? How do I go around it? How do I bust through? Uh, and I think it's made me a better instructor. I hope.
Yeah, I guarantee it has.
Because I had to think, I had to keep the energy up. I had to keep people focused and directed. I had to, and now, for those of you who've been following, like, I'm kind of on the road. I'm traveling a little bit because
Mhm.
it's not an official Karate Cafe roadshow, but I mean, we were just getting out of the house and going camping. So, I have to deal with weather and cold, and you guys have probably seen me put up pictures of me doing karate in a tent. I call it the 2D tent, uh, but just because it was, otherwise, or it's here in the camper. Um, but I've had to overcome that, and had to try and figure out how to make that happen. Because I'm not a guy showing up to work out. I'm
Right.
a guy who's running the workout, so I've got to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the things that you kind of just commented on was it's sort of like this idea that we all understand and know that the lessons of the martial arts apply to more than just combat situations. Um, Yet I don't know that a lot of people actually consciously put that into practice and say, look, I am faced with a challenge. What do I do? And it's kind of like if you're doing your one steps, right? I'm going to punch and I'm going to block, and suddenly the person doesn't do the thing you expect to be done. And then you have to mentally make that switch, and you have to pivot, and you got to go, well, okay, I could do one of two things, right? I can stop and reset us and go, that's not really what we were practicing. We need to practice whatever we're practicing. Um, but we can also say, uh, what can we do from here, right? That was the thing that was not expected. So how can I pivot now and do something different and maybe move to the side or whatever the case might be? But when that happens in life, you have to kind of do the same thing and say, well, the plan that I had wasn't working. So how can I pivot to have a new plan or do something differently?
Wow,
And
that's deep, man.
again, yeah, like I say, there's more to this stuff than just, punch, kick, move. So
Yeah, absolutely. And this is truly, as you say, this whole year has been, a sort of test all the way around. Not just, I mean, yeah, as I say, not just in karate, but I mean, or martial arts, but yeah, in life, of just like getting through it. And I mean, granted, we far more people this year have been hanging out in their pajamas than normally they would just normally do it in the dojo. Now they get to do it all the time. But trying to keep your health up and trying to explore and do new things, and that's one of the things for in the karate world, the past Okinawa masters, et cetera, have often said, that that they were like into calligraphy, and they did
right,
things that.
art and all kinds of ways to express yourself, like I think that's one of those things where, again, it's like take the lessons that you've learned inside and bring them outside. And I truly believe that we all do this at a subconscious level, but like being mindful, being aware of it, and say, okay, again, I'm faced with a conflict, I'm faced with a challenge. How can I now pivot? And for example, I mean, just something as easy as how can I use this person's energy against them? If I'm faced with a confrontation in anywhere, or with my boss or something, and my boss is saying you need to do this way, and I'm saying, well, I want to do it that way. Well, obviously that's just a straight up conflict, and guess what's not going to work? It's not going to work to just go force on force, especially with your boss. So you take some of these lessons outside and you go, okay, if force on force isn't going to work, how can I move So this situation comes to my advantage instead of my disadvantage. So again,
Or
it's
like,
lessons learned inside that you bring outside.
yeah, we're dealing with people who, refuse to wear masks or wash wash their hands. Any of this, stuff, personal
That's a
protection
good
stuff,
example.
the self defense angle of martial arts have unfortunately come into play quite a bit. One thing that when you were talking about that reminded me, because my son has like really got into mountain biking over the last year, and so therefore I have as well. And one of the things that came out of that was, mountain biking. I would see things and do stuff, and I'd be like, "Ooh, that's a good martial art concept." One of
Yeah.
the things that someone told me, a guy who we met riding, and he was been riding forever, and he said, "Well, a lot of times in mountain biking, you don't turn the wheel, you don't turn the bike with the wheel, you turn with your hips." And I'm like, "What? Hips?
Okay.
I know about hips."
Right.
And so I started when I was
I know
riding.
that.
I would explore that, like, shifting my weight and moving stuff around, and like absorbing, uh, stuff with my
Shockwaves
knees,
and
and
things like
yeah,
that.
and then
Yeah.
and unfortunately break falls. Uh,
Ah,
but
well, yeah.
but because I had break falls, you know, so I mean, and then but I would go ride and I would kind of explore that stuff. And then the next time in class, it like really got me thinking about footwork and using your core and, controlling your center line and your balance, blah, 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 blah. And so that tied directly back into, the class, which and I would explain why I'm doing it and whatnot. And so we would take the time to kind of, do stuff as like, look, we can't punch each other. We can't throw each other. We can't choke each other out, but we can work on our footwork, which is a foundational piece of whatever, or we can work on our
Absolutely.
body placement and weight shifting, and so there's that stuff that normally gets kind of maybe glossed over and not paid attention to because you just don't have the time. Well, now you got nothing but you got the same time, but you've
Yeah.
got more focus on it.
You're practically forced into it at this point. And I think too that for a lot of people that may not see themselves as creative, may not be artists or things like that, maybe you just had the wrong medium, and maybe the martial arts is your art, and you can express your creativity through that, and that's perfectly okay. Like, hey, if you're bored, what about making your own kata? How about trying that? It's just for fun. It's not, you're not gonna get in trouble for it.
Yeah, right.
So it's just, you feel free to get creative,
Literally, no one
and
can beat you.
that's right. That's
If
right.
if if they hassle you, you just mute them. It's great. Whoop. Sorry, I can't hear you. What? You know,
Yeah.
that'll show them.
So yeah.
There, yeah. So there's been this has been a trying year. A lot of things. I mean, it's like we were talking about in the green room. It's been pretty good for me. I mean, as far as living wise, I mean, I miss the dojo, and I miss the physical interaction with the people I train with, and I miss going to visit people on the road and stuff like that. But I mean, I think and I guess maybe from a culture standpoint, there was the guy who does the Okinawan Karate podcast. He was talking about the pillars of the dojo, and a couple
Hmm.
episodes back, and talking about those people in your dojo that you can like really depend on, or that really make the training worthwhile. And so, and I've got a couple of students that have really been the pillars of the dojo. I mean, they kind of already were, they were senior students and whatnot, but like, there were a few months ago, I mean, there was a time where I was really kind of like, it's like no one's showing up.
It
Cause
just
like in the
bums you out
beginning,
after a while,
yeah, like the first like 3-6 months or whatever. I mean, I had a lot of people, I had people coming in, from other schools. I had people on both coasts. I had people in Canada, a guy in Australia that would come in, and it was good energy. And we were training and we were doing good stuff. And then it kind of, I guess people just got kind of burned out or whatever. And some
Yep.
people fell away and stuff like that. And then people started to open back up, and so we had people that, I mean, as soon as it opened back up, like my visitors drained away, and they would still
Wow.
have their online course. Yeah, and I was like, whether or not I agree that they should be back in the dojo or not, it was just kind of like, wow, it's fair weather friend kind of thing. Like, kind of ticked me off a little bit. But but it got to be a little bit of a slog of you know coming up, and oh yeah, there's a whole political part of this whole online courses that we'll talk about later. Um, but there was it was kind of a slog, and like you don't have like one or two people show up, and you have like one white belt and one black belt, and so there's really nothing in the middle, right? So it's kind of hard to, that was the challenge, to try and make stuff that would keep them,
Yeah.
because you can't like separate them off into the breakout rooms in Zoom,
Right. You
be by
can't.
themselves, and you
Yeah.
go do your kata, and I'll be
Yeah.
back, and then come back, and then
Right.
okay, now so for a
Very
while, I mean,
difficult.
I kind of powered through it, I think, and I think I got back into a good place. But there's an ebb and flow with everything, and like now, we're all like, I got my first shot. Supposed to get another one in a couple of weeks. One of my
Yep.
senior
Me
guys is
too.
going to get his second one. So like most of the dojo, because I don't know, I have like 4 or 5 people, right, are going to be vaccinated. So now it's like, okay, well, what do we do? How long do we wait? How, what
Is
do
it
we do
time
when
to
we get back
come
in?
back?
And
Yeah.
we sublet. I sublet space. So like I'm not in control of the space that we're going to be in. So, then I got to worry about what they're doing. And it's just, so it's just another level of I don't know, whatever
Challenge.
challenge, to
Yeah.
what has been a challenging time for the last, 12 months or so. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
again, it's
so
it kind of goes back to the like you got to a point where it was just like, well, I just have to power through this, and that's you can either give up or
yeah.
you can keep going.
Yeah, and I've told my students many times, it's like I'm not the system, I'm not the dojo. We're the dojo. So
Right.
I've got a senior student, and he's a Nidan, so he's a secondary black belt. He knows plenty about the system, and he's done a fantastic job taking over classes, like when I'm traveling and can't be there, or I have an internet event or whatever because I'm on the road. But and then I've got a mid-level student, a green belt, and she's fantastic and has been really helping people up and bringing in the new guys. So having those pillars of the dojo, it became pretty clear, because I mean, in the early days I was a little like, people who were like, they just didn't show up, right? They didn't even try to do the online classes.
Right.
And I would try and talk them through, hey, okay, let's just give it a try, and let's figure out the issues that are in the
Yeah.
way with you doing it,
Yeah.
and they
Yep.
just, they didn't even try. So it's like that, when we go back to many years ago, the customer versus the student, right? The student's going to come train,
Right.
and the customer is going to go like, you know your your your
Never
your
mind.
hours and location don't work for me anymore, so.
Right.
But I mean, there's also, it was a weird time. I mean, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. People were getting laid off, and
All
so
kinds of stuff was going on.
and I had one student who was really, he was bummed out. He was like, he wasn't sure if he's going to have a gig, at any given day. And
Yeah.
and then I was like, it's much better to be training than not, and I was like, don't
That's
worry about
true.
money, just
Yep.
come train, and I just, his living situation made it tough for him to train. And he just, and but for the word, for the longest time, he kept paying dues every month. He paid his dues. So,
Wow.
I've got a couple students that, they came for a little while, they stopped coming, but they would pay their dues. Like, they might miss a month or two, but then they'd pay. And I was like, and I'm like, dude, you don't have to
Yep.
pay, just whatever, if so it's just been a really weird time, and challenge
Yeah.
upon challenge.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah. It has been a really weird time, and it's been weird for everybody. And I think if I would hope, especially like in these kinds of communities, that if people aren't coming together with a, hey, let's solve this together, let's work out these problems together. Oh, you're getting laid off because of COVID. I don't have any rental space fees, so how about we I don't know, cut your dues in half, or whatever the case might be, like don't just stop coming. Come and say, hey, can we work something out? Because I think that that's a lot of what, being a part of the community is. And again, we talk about that, the student versus customer. And yes, if you're just a customer and you come for the workout and that's it, then that's going to be your story. But even if you're a little bit into the student realm, just know that most instructors are, I mean, very compassionate, especially when it comes to like having a job and money and stuff. Because
Yeah.
keep in mind, one, most instructors either have two jobs, right? One is instructing, two is what they make a living from. And if they don't have two jobs, then I guarantee you, spent a long period of their martial arts career struggling. So either way, they understand financial struggle and they know what that's about. And so just keep in mind that these people are compassionate human beings. And yes, we're trained to have a ton of respect for these guys. And if I don't pay my dues, then I'm going to break my contract. And then if I break my contract, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
If you don't see your instructor as a human being as well, then that's kind of a problem too. So like, we're all just people and we're all trying to get this through this thing together. So
Yeah. I'm quite sure that, I mean, I'd like to hear from some of the people on the board, on the Facebook page, call it what you will, that have encountered, what their instructor has done, or what their school has done. Because yeah, I mean, there are, as much as I don't enjoy it, there are people who make a living from doing martial arts, and some of them look at it as they're not doing it because really necessarily they love martial arts. They're doing it because they make a good living at it, and they're
right,
really much more focused on the business part of the martial arts than the actual martial art itself. And
right,
I'm quite sure there's got to have been stories of people who were like, well, yeah, I was in a, auto deduct, whatever contract. And because I mean, there are guys that, I mean, there's a guy down the street from my place that his place sat empty for months and months. Well, there's lots of them that sat empty for months and months and months because no one could come in and train. Now, some of those guys would, they would have their class, they figured out, how to Zoom and all that whatnot, and they would just do it from their school, right? But I know people in our federation, like people just stop paying because they couldn't afford it,
I mean, that's the other thing, is that in all honesty, I wouldn't be super keen on paying the same price for online classes that I did for
Oh yeah.
in-person classes.
Yeah, I dropped
You
my
know,
price on for most of my guys. I mean, there's a couple of them that I said, I'm going to drop the price, and they're like, no, it's cool. I can do it. I can handle
right.
it. I want to support my dojo
Again,
because
it's community. Yeah,
yeah, it was going to be like 3 months, 6 months, whatever. So,
right.
but yeah, I dropped my price because I'm like, well, I mean, I was still paying for my space, but I didn't feel, but I did a deal with them, and so they dropped the price because it was the same
Yeah.
thing, right? But I was like, look, I mean, I'm actually putting more work into the class
Right. It's true.
than I normally am because I'm only
Yeah.
in 2D, right? So
Right.
I'm doing more stuff, and like I kind of kitted out my room, and I had to get a bigger monitor. I did all this. I didn't lay out a whole lot of cash, but I mean, I had to do the Zoom and whatnot. And so, but I was doing a whole lot of work to get class ready, but it wasn't in person, so I felt like I should drop the price a little bit, and for good or ill,
Yeah.
that is what it is. But yeah, it's just been a really strange time, and so, and we've fallen off doing these because of the vicissitudes of life. So but maybe now that we're you know again seeing light at the end of the tunnel, we can kind of get back to it and start
Yeah.
making fun of our taekwondo brethren and sisterin, and laugh with our jujitsu friends and get some spirited debate
That's
going
right.
again.
That sure would be nice.
That would be nice, isn't it?
Yes,
Dan,
indeed.
it was really super good to see you
Indeed,
again,
indeed. Great to see you.
and literally
Yeah.
see you.
It was a lot of fun.
And again, for those of you listening, you can hear us
Right?
now, but you can see us later when we post this up on YouTube. Just because, why not? I mean, since everyone's zooming
Just
and
because why
doing,
not?
yeah,
Everybody's
and
doing it.
as a special note, I don't know about the culture of your business, Dan, but in ours, we're very much like, yeah, we know everyone's got bad hair, so like we almost never turn the cameras on when we're doing our meetings, and so
Right. I know
uh,
us either.
so the fact that you guys can actually see us is probably pretty
Is
important.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
ordinarily
Make
you
you
would
even
just be
feel
seeing,
special.
right, you would just be seeing, blank or whatever.
I only
Or
turn my camera on for vice president or above, really.
ooh, so you, dear
Yep.
listeners, are all C-suiters.
That's right. Damn straight.
Well, cool, Dan. It's been a pleasure talking to you and seeing you.
Yes, you too.
And we will talk to you all again, and you can see us all very soon.